Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Mike with Rolling Nut Music with a quick tip for anybody who's having trouble dealing with latency problems when they reamp their guitar outside of their DAW. Now, before we get into it, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, anything like that to help the channel grow. I have more videos like this. I've got other stuff that I do, so that would help me out a ton. Thank you so much. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, this tip is for people that have spent the time to get the perfect take. A lot of the time you do that with plugging a dry guitar signal into your DAW. And then afterwards, you want to actually reamp that, either using a real amplifier or using another digital amplifier that doesn't exist in the DAW software itself as a plugin. The reason why a lot of people tend to do this is because some plugins don't necessarily have the sound that they're looking for, or they might possibly just want to use their amplifier in a recording environment. However, when you encounter the latency issue in some DAWs, some people don't necessarily know how to account for that. And in many cases, people don't have software that necessarily has a lot of the extra bells and whistles that the more expensive DAWs have. So this video is meant to kind of give you a bit of a workaround so that you know what to do if you encounter these latency problems. Just in case you're not understanding what latency is the delay in time that it takes for an audio interface or your computer or your software to process audio as it comes in. Sometimes the latency is so fast that you don't even notice it while you're recording, especially if you're using live plugins. That tends to more exclusively happen in dedicated hardware or powerful computer systems. Now, some people don't necessarily have this option, and this tip, just to let you know, is not going to help you completely work around the latency problem when you're going into the system. What this is for is to account for the fact that there is a delay in the audio when it gets re-recorded. The problem comes in when you have a delay from when you send that dry guitar signal out using a reamp box to a live guitar amp, hook up to a microphone, and then go back into your system. There's a small amount of, however long delay. Could be half a second, could be more, could be less. It could be very substantial in time, or it could be really minuscule. This causes phase problems when you're trying to use more than one amplifier sound, or you're trying to make sure that your amplified guitar sound is actually in complete time with your dry take in your DAW. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to show you a little bit on video how this actually works and what to do to get around it. All right, so for an example of this, here's a session file that I have open, and I have 3 guitar tracks. I have my dry guitar with a virtual amp on it. I have a copy of that dry guitar signal going to an extra output, sent off to another amplifier. In this case, I'm using a digital amplifier for this, but you can use this method with real amplifiers as well. So for this exercise, I have an output going to an external rack pod, a bit of an older piece of hardware, but it has a digital output, and I have it permanently hooked up in my system. After that, it goes through, it gets processed by the virtual guitar amplifier itself, then it comes back out through a digital signal to another input on my interface, recorded in the 3rd track that you see underneath. Let's listen to it real quick. That amplified signal is actually slightly behind the original signal. Now, the problem here is the fact that the guitar signal coming in from the amplifier is a printed signal. It's all distorted, and you can't see any of the transients from the dry guitar signal coming in above it. So this becomes a big nightmare when you're dealing with trying to align those 2 tracks on top of each other, especially if you're trying to stack the virtual amp from up top to the external amp on the bottom. What may end up happening is a doubled signal or a signal that's out of phase. Now, you could try to manually make this happen if you want to, but unfortunately, that could be a huge waste of time. And with some more expensive DAWs, you may have something that accounts for that latency input-output, but some people don't know how to use that, or that feature doesn't exist in lower-cost DAWs. This will help you get around that. So we're going to start over in this case for the recording of the guitar with the external amp, but before we do that, in this track down here, I've got a rendered click sample. What I'm going to do is take that click sample and put that on the downbeat of the measure beforehand. Now, before we record, one of the things you want to make sure that you do, especially if you work with real live amplifiers, is try to lower the volume of that click to where it doesn't blow out your amplifier. The best thing you could do for this, because amplifiers tend to really blow up that sound, is to make sure that that click sound is pretty low volume, like really low volume, just enough so that you get a sample of that click in the external amplifier. All right, now we have that click sample lined up on the measure before when the guitar starts so you have plenty of space to edit that out afterwards. Record the guitar with that click in the track. Now that is recorded, tab to a transient, chop at that click, and bring that click in perfect alignment with the click above it. This should help account for any of the major phase problems that you have, and now when we listen back, these two guitar tracks are in phase with each other. Now you can stack these two guitar tracks on top of each other and get a way bigger, fatter tone than you could with just using one guitar amp tone. And that's it. If this little tip helped you out, please feel free to leave me a comment and like the video to help the channel grow. Also, again, make sure to hit subscribe and hit that bell icon for more videos when they come out. Again, this is Mike from Ruling Note Music, reminding you to never compromise your sound.